Hello and welcome to another exclusive interview from the Forum of SARIM, South Asia Research Institute for Minorities. This is Sumbul Yousuf, Associate Project Director at SARIM. Today we are having a very honorable guest. We are pleased to announce Ms. Tazeen Hasan. I would introduce her. She's from Canada. She's currently the campaign manager for Justice for All Canada. Tazeen Hasan is a Harvard graduate, human rights activist, journalist, and a writer. She received Harvard Spotlight Award 2020 for her extensive research on Uyghur refugees, for which she spent 4 weeks with them in 2 cities of Turkey. She has also co-authored 2 anthologies published in Canada. And having widely traveled and lived in Middle East, South Asia, and North America, her work publishes in all 3 regions. Her main focus is human rights issues, humanitarian law, human rights abuses, genocide, and her writings also touch on the issues of gender and migration. Thank you for joining us, Tazeen.
Assalamu alaikum and walaikum assalam, Sumbul. Thank you very much for inviting me and such kind words, such a wonderful introduction.
Tazeen's research area in the field of humanitarian law and human rights abuses is quite wide. So we decided to focus on an issue that is very brewing and that is very important in today's context. Because what we see today is the rise of majoritarianism, the trend of majoritarianism in even existing democracies, which threatens the very right to live for the minorities. And especially in context of India, if we see that a lot of news we are watching right now, every day we see something, either lynching or some apartheid laws. So the main focus of our topic, the main topic today would be rising influence of hindutva in the Western world. So getting on our topic, well, first of all, Tazeen, we would like to know about your organization that you're working with right now, Justice for All Canada. Introduce us with the organization, how it works, what it does for the advocacy that you're working for.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Justice for All is basically a Chicago-based human rights advocacy organization. We work with the State Department, we work with the United States government, United Nations, different Canadian government, Canadian Foreign Affairs Department, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, to advocate the persecuted minorities around the world. We are raising voice and we are trying to mobilize the masses. We try to educate the masses. We try to pressurize the authorities to take action against the violations, human rights violations around the world, against the violations, human rights violations against the persecuted minorities around the world, and especially against the genocides that are happening around the world. We are seeing a genocide in Northwest China. We have worked a lot. Canada is the first country that recognized the Rohingya genocide. And we were working since about 2015, we were working on Rohingya genocide. So we played a major role in persuading Canadian government to recognize Rohingya genocide. And same we did with the Uyghur one. I mean, the Northwest China, the Chinese Muslims, the genocide of Chinese Muslims. So recently, so we have multiple campaigns. We have a campaign, Save Uyghur from Genocide, Burma Task Force, that is about the Rohingya, Bosnia Task Force. There was a time when Bosnian people, our Bosnian brothers, needed help and support, and we provided them with the name Bosnian Task Force. Recently, we are focused on Save India from Fascism, because we have seen that the BJP politicians and the Sangh Parivar, that is the collected name for this hindutva organizations in India, are openly calling for genocide of Indian Muslims. We have seen mob lynchings, we have seen large number of audience, I mean millions of audience, and the speaker is talking about killing Muslims of India. We have seen that Yogi Adityanath, the chief minister of the largest state, Uttar Pradesh in India, he actually promised a Muslim-free India. What he was calling was actually extermination or Holocaust. So the world is concerned, and we are trying. World is concerned, but the governments around the world are silent. The Western governments who have made these laws, genocide law, human rights, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Geneva Convention, all these corpus of humanitarian law and the human rights law is produced by the West mainly. But these people are silent on these human rights violations that are occurring in India. As you mentioned, that majoritarianism is a threat. It's a threat for the whole world. If we see, it's a threat in North America. It's a threat in North America. We see its manifestation as the Trump electoral victory. In UK, we see it as Brexit. In other European countries, we see it as anti-immigrant sentiments, anti-immigrants violence, anti-immigrant protests. And then we see that pro-Nazi organizations are reaching the parliaments. So basically, but what we see, there is a difference when we talk about the majoritarianism or the tyranny of majority in India and tyranny of majority in the Western world. There is a stark difference. When Indian government or Indian politicians or the Hindutva leadership is targeting Muslims, nobody is speaking against it. In the West, we see that the liberals speak against the white supremacists. If we see recently, that there is a huge protest of white supremacists in Toronto, in our capital, against the Trudeau government's COVID restrictions and so. Liberals are talking about it. Western intelligentsia is talking about it. Western media is publishing articles about it. But when something is happening when these racist people are doing something wrong in India, nobody is talking about it. You see stark silence. So we are working against that. We are basically trying to remind the Western world, the Western politicians, our office bearers in Ottawa, what's happening in India, and where the Indian government is violating human rights, where they are denying fundamental freedoms, where they are denying freedom of expression, where they are supporting mob lynchings, where they are supporting genocide with impunity. They are providing impunity to the leaders of the Hindutva, if you see. So this is all about Justice for All is doing, and let me explain how we work. Actually, we actually send. We are monitoring. My usual day starts with the monitoring of the media. Basically, media around the world. I see what's happening in India, what's happening in Kashmir, what is happening with the Kashmiri prisoners, what is happening in Chinese Northwest, and then we start planning. We write memos to the government officials. There are different departments. I'm in charge for the Kashmiri prisoners and Free Kashmir, but we all work together. So I'm also working on Save India from Fascism, although the major in charge is Sister Sadia, and I will introduce to her. So we write memos to the government officials. We approach MPs on telephones. We hammer them constantly. I had a meeting with the MLA, member of Alberta Legislative Assembly, this evening. And we had some volunteers. Many volunteers are working around North America with us because they feel that what we are doing is in their interest. They feel that our stance on the human rights is something that should be done. So volunteers are working with us. And we actually, this week, I met one MP from my riding, Blake Desjardins. He's an indigenous, he belongs to indigenous Canadian community. And we met him and we told him about the situation in India. And he basically promised us to support. Let's see how much he support us in the parliament. Inshallah, but we will inshallah do that. So today we had a meeting with our MLA, and he also provided support. He also provided suggestions about that. So we are constantly hammering them. Either someone is ready to listen to us, either someone is taking action or not, but we are hammering them. Then we are providing the updated information.
Yes.
So basically, then we are educating the masses. We are trying to mobilize the masses with the blogs, with op-eds. We are also arranging webinars. Last month, we had a very insightful webinar with George Stanton, the Genocide Watch founder in Washington, D.C. We had a webinar on Khurram Parvez's arrest in India, the human rights defender, the global famed human rights defender from Kashmir. He was arrested, and we are running a campaign for his release, along with United Nations officials like Mary Lawlor. George Stanton was there for Save India from Fascism, and then some Amnesty people. There is a Kennedy Foundation. They are also cooperating with us. One of the work we are doing is coalition, making coalition with other human rights organizations and other persecuted groups like Sikh, Dalit, who they are also a victim of Indian aggression. We are making coalition with the organizations, other organizations who are working for Kashmir, who are working for Uyghurs. One of the work we are doing is we are connected on ground with the impacted community. We are directly connected to the Kashmiri prisoners. I'm working on Shabbir Shah and Khurram Parvez. We are connected with the friends of Khurram Parvez. We are connected with the family of Shabbir Shah. We are connected with their lawyers and advocates. So basically, our work starts from the ground, and we are taking it to the highest echelon of power: United States State Department, United States International Religious Freedom, United Nations, UNOHCR in Geneva. So Alhamdulillah, we are doing all that, and we are getting response. I will say that response is slow, but we should not be disappointed. Usually I felt that Pakistanis, when I started talking about the advocacy, Pakistanis usually give the reaction that, okay, what is going to happen? And if Amnesty International publishes the report, what happens? So these things work glacially.
The hope, yes.
Yeah, exactly. We should keep
hope that
so this is all yeah. This is all we do here at Justice for All Canada.
You were talking about yes, you were talking about the campaign Save India from Fascism. While you were talking about it, you said that the hindutva leaders are calling for genocide of minorities in India. And I would like to mention not just Muslims, but also Christians, because they consider them the foreign religions and foreign invaders. So I would like to, even before knowing what is Hindutva, what its ideology is Hindutva equal to Hinduism? Because Hinduism is a religion. It's a very old religion. So please make this clear.
I would like to make it clear that thank you very much for reminding me that we should give this disclaimer, and everyone working on this topic should give this disclaimer that Hindutva and Hinduism are not the same. Hinduism is a religion, and it had a history of coexistence with other religions, with other nations, with other countries, thousands of years of history. Hinduism has history, but Hindutva is a political ideology. It's a neo-Nazi political ideology. According to the founders, Hindutva ideology was actually coined by Savarkar, V.D. Savarkar, in 1923, and then it was taken with Gawalkar in 1950s or 60s. Basically, both of these leaders actually they say what. Let me explain what Hindutva ideology is. First, make it clear that it's a political ideology. It has nothing to do with the religion. Number two, this ideology is pro-Nazi ideology. This is a fascist ideology, according to their own founders. V.D. Savarkar, who actually made the corpus, who produced the corpus, and who write the book, Who as a Hindu and Hindutva, who write the first book in 1923, 100 years back. He basically make it clear that India is a place, where only Hindus can live. He said that we should do with Muslims what Hitler did with Nazis. So if genocidal calls are there in 2022, their ideology was founded in 1923, 100 years back. So he clearly said in his book about Hindutva, 1923 book, that we should do the same treatment. I mean, we should apply the same treatment to Muslims of India, what Hitler did with the Jews, actually, not Nazis, I'm sorry. So basically, it's a pro-Nazi ideology, and then he praised Hitler too much. He praised the German race, the white supremacist, German supremacist ideology, the racist ideology he supported in his book. And then Gawalkar, he supported the fascism, the fascist ideology of Mussolini, he supported in his books. So we know that this organization, they are very well disciplined, they are very focused. And I would like to clear one thing, that Hindutva leadership, Savarkar, and then there are many organizations that actually emerged from this ideology, this Hindutva ideology. Shiv Sena, Bal Thackeray we know, the cricket fame person in India. Now he died basically. Narendra Modi. He was basically a member of RSS who killed Gandhi. They had their ideology was quite opposite to the Nehru and Gandhi's secular ideology, on which the Indian constitution is based basically. They killed Gandhi because they thought that Gandhi and the Congress people, they are appeasing Muslims of India. They are appeasing Muslims. And they assassinated Gandhi, and RSS was banned. RSS was banned in 1948, and then it emerged again. And in 1960s, 75 to 77, it was again banned. But they have been working underground, and they not only they worked underground inside India, but they extended their influence outside India as early as 1946. So basically, Hindutva and Hinduism, what I want to say, Hindutva and Hinduism are two different things. Kindly don't mix them. And one thing I'm cautioning you basically, I'm warning you, and the MLA I talked to today, he also mentioned that whenever I criticize the policies of India in Kashmir, there are people here in Alberta, there are people here in Canada, there are people here in North America who accuse me of going against India. They are saying that you are a Hindu phobic person, you are against the Hindu religion. How should I deal? He asked me, how should I deal with these people? And I told him that because they are personally attacking you, and this is happening with everyone who is talking against, who is raising voice against these genocidal calls, who is raising voice against the human rights violations, he is being accused of Hindu phobic. He is being accused of raising voice against Hinduism, although we are not talking against Hinduism. Criticizing Hindutva is not criticizing Hinduism. Similarly, as criticizing ISIS is not going against Muslims. We won't say, if somebody is criticizing ISIS, we won't say that you are anti-Muslim. Or if somebody is criticizing the policies of Israel, it doesn't mean that he is anti-Semitic. So similarly, if somebody, so we should have basically the argument. We have this argument actually on daily basis. We have this argument that people accuse us of going against Hinduism, although we are not against any religion. We are against the Hindutva ideology, that is a pro-Nazi ideology.
Yes, what I grabbed from here is that Hinduism as a religion has a history of coexistence, and it has been a plural. It has a plural culture in its background. And what you also said is that human rights workers, as such yours, are being targeted for being Hindu phobic, just as, if human rights activists talk about the apartheid laws.
Not the human rights workers, but the politicians. Sorry. Not the human rights workers, but the politicians, the authorities, the office bearers, the historians, the academics, all of them are being targeted. In September, there was a conference, Dismantling Hindutva conference, and it was supported by 70 Western universities. And Dismantling Hindutva, because it was criticizing Hindutva, because it was evaluating this ideology, Hindutva, it was being targeted, it was being attacked by millions of emails. Guardian, Washington Post, Al Jazeera, all published articles because the organizers and the participants were receiving death threats. They were receiving threats that their relatives will be killed. One lady found her son's 4-year son's photograph. One of the participants, the candidate participants in the organization, in this conference, Dismantling Hindutva conference, she got threats that your son will face a very painful death. And some of the lady participants, they get the rape threats over internet. So basically, everyone who is talking about Hindutva, who is rejecting the philosophy of Hindutva, he's rejecting the ideology of Hindutva, is getting threats. There are politicians who are getting, and they are being accused. They are being opposed by the Hindutva voters. And Hindutva, and this is the greatest manifestation of Hindutva in the West, if you see. There was, I was just reading an article from Politico. There was a candidate from Biden party, the Democrats in America, Ro Khanna. He was from Indian background, and he actually tweeted that I reject Hindutva. And all those Hindutva followers and Hindutva, they actually make a front against him. They actually accused him of being Hinduphobic. Same happened in the British Parliament, in the UK. So basically, everyone who is talking against or rejecting the ideology of Hindutva is being targeted. And this is the greatest manifestation. You have heard about Audrey Treshke. She actually wrote book on Aurangzeb, and she actually dismantled many of the myths associated with this Muslim ruler, that he was Hindu-phobic, or he actually persecuted the Hindus, and he actually demolished. So she actually, after a thorough research, she actually dismantled some of the myths associated with Aurangzeb, the Mughal emperor. And Hindutva people, they are actually targeting Treshke, Audrey Treshke, that she's an agent, Pakistani agent. She is being paid by Pakistani intelligence. And CJ Werleman, an Australian who is raising voice against the persecution of Muslims around the world, and who is raising voice against Islamophobia. He is also being targeted by these Hindutva groups, And these people are very influential, not only in the India. In India, we know that Modi has assumed power since 1995. After actually, I will say that after the demolition of Babri Masjid in 1990s, this event and this politics, Babri Masjid politics, actually, this catapulted BJP and the Sangh Parivar into the parliament. And now we see that in 2014, Modi was elected, and then in 2019, Modi was elected. And this is not just in India. Hindutva influence has not reached to this unprecedented height, not just in India, but around the world. If you see in Australia, in New Zealand, you see the Sangh Parivar. Sangh Parivar, the word Sangh Parivar I'm using for, it's a collection of organizations that support the Hindutva ideology. Vishwa Hindu Parishad, Shiv Sena, RSS. There are overseas organizations like Hindu Swayam Sevak. RSS is Rashtriya Swayam Sevak. Hindu Swayam Sevak is actually a overseas organization connected to RSS there. But in the Western world, they are being registered as a charity, as humanitarian organizations, as a spiritual, as organizations that are spiritually guiding the Hindus. And BJP government, when they assumed power in the time of Vajpayee in 1995, at that time, Rajesh Mishra, there was a politician, Rajesh Mishra, who basically, or he was an official, I'm sorry, I'm just mixing. So basically, Rajesh Mishra stated that we should lobby the United States government in a similar way that Israel lobbies. And there is a very strong lobby that exists in Washington, D.C. And then there is very strong lobby that exists in Canadian government. One of the manifestation of this Hindutva influence in the West is Yousuf. There is a State Department, this institute, this commission, actually, United States International Commission for International Religious Freedom. Yousuf is basically commissioned by State Department, and it basically monitors the condition of minorities around the world, and it issues its report about the minorities around the world. So 3 years in a row, Yousuf has recommended that India should be included in the list of countries of particular concern. And State Department, in all those 3 years, the State Department has rejected the recommendation by Yousuf. So there are people inside the State Department who do not let India, let the State Department people, the State Department staff, and the American president. Actually, that list is issued by American president, and American president always reject this recommendation of Yousuf that India should be included in the list of countries of particular concern. This term, list of particular concern, basically CPC actually used for those countries where minorities are being persecuted. And no other country in the world, minorities are persecuted in this way as they are being done in India. If we see, majoritarianism is rampant in the whole world, extremism is rampant in the whole world. But if we see how India is treating its minorities, how they are providing impunity to the genocide callers, this is not happening anywhere in the world.
Right. So my question right now, you were talking about, Hindutva organizations having influence in the West. How exactly are they able to do this, especially when there's an environment of, inclusiveness, of talking, remaining in the domain of human rights, What is their modus operandi, basically?
They simply work very hard. They simply work very, very, very hard. They are
We're
very
gonna praise them
focused.
for that.
They, yeah, I am praising them in this sense, really, because they are
Yeah.
focused, they are well planned, they had the visionary leaders. Whatever their ideology is, we have definitely, we are not supporting their ideology. This is genocidal ideology. We are not supporting Hitler or anyone who is following Hitler ideology or Mussolini ideology.
Hmm.
But they worked very hard in last 100 years. They have very dedicated workers. They are very well planned as compared to others. They actually push their narrative. You know, the world buys this narrative of India being the largest democracy in the world. The Western world especially, they feel that India is a very strategic partner because India is the largest democracy in the world, and Western world is really buys this narrative. Number two, uh, India is a market of 1.3 billion people, we know. So this, because of this also, Western world buys the Indian narrative. Then there is a narrative that the India built actually, and Hindutva was also part of it, that this Indian society based on the peaceful Gandhian philosophy of non-violence. And we know the reality. We know the reality of the largest democracy in the world. It's not the democracy, it's the tyranny of majority, actually, what BJP is exercising. We know that Indian society was never based on Gandhian non-violence principle. Before BJP, there was a secular constitution. We know that it was produced by Nehru and Ambedkar, but still there were violence against Muslims, violence against Dalits, violence against Adivasis that Arundhati Roy talks about. So basically, Hindutva people, when they work in the West, if you see, I will just tell you a little
I would
history.
like to just mention that, the impunity that now violence has got is after BJP got in central government, right?
Let me answer your first question, that how Hindutva spread its ideology outside India, especially in the Western countries. Basically, you know, Hindutva philosophy was based, the Savarkar's Hindutva ideology was based on the land. That if anyone who has the holy place inside India, who considers his holy place inside India, is Hindu. So Muslims and Christians are not basically Hindu, but Sikh and Jain can be considered Hindu, or Buddhist people can be considered Hindu. But as early as 1946, there were branches of Hindutva organizations outside India. In 1946, there is a myth associated. I don't know it is right or wrong, to what extent this is a reality, but they say that the first shaka outside India, the first branch of Hindutva organizations outside India, the RSS shaka, was actually founded on a ship to Kenya. We know that Britishers took many Indian workers to the East Africa and the Fiji Island and Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda. So basically, the first shaka, the first shakas or the branches of RSS were created after 1946, 1947 during the British Raj uh, in East African countries. Then in 1962, when Africa was decolonized, many of the people associated with these shakas moved to the cities, UK cities in Great Britain, Birmingham and Leicester. So they actually founded RSS branches with the name HSS, that is Hindu Swayam Sevak. So when outside India, they are working as I told earlier, that they are registered under the disguise of charities, but their work modus operandi is the same. So they are actually advocating there, they are influencing the diplomacy. And then, you know, RSS leadership was not directly involved, in the overseas operation, but in 1990s they actually realized that the Western Hindutva followers who are in diaspora, they are affluent and they can be a good funding source for the RSS operations inside. So basically, Hindu Swayam Sevak actually raised fund throughout the period RSS was banned. RSS was banned because they assassinated Gandhi. RSS was banned later by Indira Gandhi during 1975 to 77. And basically, Hindu Swayam Sevak, they collected funds overseas for their survival of RSS inside India during that period. And then when Modi, actually during the 1980s, many people don't know this fact that Modi actually traveled to United States in 1980. Although at that time there was a love-hate relationship of Hindutva people with the West. They always used to oppose what is Western. They always used to oppose the capitalism. But Modi actually traveled to United States. He traveled far and wide. He actually studied the urban landscape of the dams, the road infrastructure. Basically, and this is mentioned by a French South Asian expert. You might have heard his name, Christophe Jefferley. I will send you some of his books, Sumbul, and he has basically researched both on Pakistan and India. So basically, at that time, they realized during the 1990s, the RSS actually realized that the people who are in the West, the Hindutva followers who are in the West, they can be very useful. And there are many other organizations, associated with the Sangh Parivar. RSS is not the only organization. RSS is actually the militant wing, we can say. Actually, it was actually the founder of all these organizations, Sangh Parivar, Vishwa Hindu Parishad, that is actually calling for genocide right now. Vishwa Hindu Parishad established a branch in Canada as early as 1970. And then they started a branch in United States in 1971. They started a branch in United Kingdom in 1972. And looking at the fact that it was actually founded in India in 1966, in 8 years it extended to United States, Canada, United States, and UK. So basically, then RSS starting raising funds. These organizations, Vishwa Hindu Parishad actually acted as like an education facility for the Indians. I mean, this spiritual and what we call Vedic culture. They are basically acted as they are introducing Indian children with Vedic culture and Hindutva foundations. So basically, many of the Indians, oblivion to the fact that these organizations are extremists, they are connected to Vishwa Hindu Parishad in Canada. And Vishwa Hindu Parishad, recently there's one more manifestation in Canada. Hindu Chamber of Commerce and Industry. They recently basically founded Hindu Chamber of Commerce and Industry in Toronto. And the one who is heading Hindu Chamber of Commerce and Industry, his name is Navesh Chavda. He's an overseas member of Vishwa Hindu Parishad that is calling for genocide. And Justin Trudeau, our Prime Minister, Canadian Prime Minister, basically sent him a congratulatory message for the inauguration of Hindu Chamber of Commerce and Industry. In other words, Justin Trudeau is actually supporting a genocide in India when he is sending a message to a member of Vishwa Hindu Parishad who is founding Hindu Chamber of Commerce and Industry. He is actually complicit in the genocide of Indian Muslims. We know that Washington-based Genocide Watch, it basically issued 2 warnings for India. For Indian government, 2 genocide warnings in India, one in Kashmir and one in Assam, where the CAA, the Citizenship Amendment Act, is in full swing. If we see that Indian government is not backing off from Citizenship Amendment Act, although they have backed off from the farmers movement, for farmers regulations and what it was, all the chaos made against the Sikh community. So basically, your answer that how they have spread themselves. They have spread themselves through the advocacy. Then they lobbied after 1995, after BJP assumed power in the Vajpayee era. They actually started this lobbying the US government, and US government, is is a very powerful entity. We can't deny that. And someone was telling me, someone from Washington told me recently, and he's a very authentic person. I won't name him. He told me that, and he's very close to the think tanks and the United Nations government. He's told me that the State Department's FPAC section, FPAC is Afghanistan and Pakistan, FPAC desk, they have 43 employees, and 38 of them are from India, he told me. And you can imagine that India is being ruled by a genocidal regime, the Modi regime, the Hindutva regime, and 38 out of 43 employees of the FPAC who are making strategies for Pakistan and Afghanistan, basically, they are from India. So this is their influence, if you. And then if we see, they are everywhere in the American academia. If you notice, there are people like Swami. I'm missing his name, full name. He's a member of parliament in India, but he was teaching at Harvard. So basically, the academia is the engine that is driving all these efforts of Hindutva. If you see, they are basically in academia, they are in State Department, they are in Canadian government. If you see that why the Western governments are silent on the genocidal calls, they always talk about human rights. They actually produce the human rights corpus. They actually produce the international human rights law, the international humanitarian law, but they are silent. Trudeau talks about Canadian genocide, Canadian Aboriginals genocide, but he will never talk about the Indian Muslims genocide. They are silent. Today, there was a statement from our foreign minister that we support freedom of speech, freedom of expression around the world. And we want to remind them, at Justice for All, we want to remind them that Kashmiri journalists are being arrested on daily basis. They are being harassed by Indian government. Even the journalism in India is in, if now India comes in top 10 countries who are against, who are denying the freedom of expression to their media. But no one in the State Department, no one in the Canadian government, no one from the British government, you will see that they are raising voice against the human rights violations, the denial of fundamental freedoms in India. So this is the modus operandi. If you see, they are collecting funds, they are supporting, and then they make use in 1990s, as early as 1990s, they make use of cyber shakas. They established cyber shakas in 1999. So you can understand that they make use of digital revolution. They have penetration in Silicon Valley. Modi, when he came, he visited actually Silicon Valley and he met many of them. And this genocide, and when he was the Home Minister of Gujarat in 2000, sorry, in 2002, when he assumed power in Gujarat, basically, he actually founded a government institution that was called NRG, non-resident Gujaratis. Non-resident Gujaratis means the Gujaratis outside India, and he attracted. He at that time he attracted not only the funds, but he also attracted investment in Gujarat. And many of the funds were used for the massacre of 2002 massacre of Gujarati Muslims. We know that, everyone know that Modi's US visa was denied on the basis that he actually organized this Gujarati Muslims massacre at that time. So here we see, I was just reading about Ro Khanna. He's a Democratic, he was a Democratic candidate. I don't know he won or not. I couldn't follow up, but he actually tweeted that I reject Hindutva and all the Indian citizens are equal, Muslims and Christians and all. And Hindutva followers inside the United States, they actually made a battle. I actually mentioned that earlier. So these are the manifestations of Hindutva influence in the West. In 2007, New Zealand Prime Minister actually attended a conference by Vishwa Hindu Parishad. Prime Minister of the country attended a conference by Vishwa Hindu Parishad in New Zealand, and there was a Hindu lady, a film, a documentary maker, who actually mentioned that there were anti-Muslim rhetoric during the conference. And this is the organization which is actually calling for genocide of Indian Muslims. You know that the recent controversy in December, there were large conferences of Hindutva followers organized by Vishwa Hindu Parishad and some other organization, and they actually told their audience that you should have the weapons, and you should, if there are 200 people, they should be, we can eliminate these 20 lakh people, sorry, not 20 lakh, 20 million Muslims actually. So this is the these are the things that we can see here in the Western world, in academia. What I say that they are very hard workers, and they are it is actually their academia that is driving their research, that is driving their advocacy. So I hope I answered your question. I'm sorry for being distracted. That is.
Okay, it was very informative. But the thing that baffles me right now is you told us about Western governments attending conferences from these governments and being silent on Indian persecution of minorities. I'm interested in knowing like whether their propaganda is winning, whether their narrative is being bought by Western world, or whether it's some kind of geopolitical interest or economic interests that are making Modi and his ideology more acceptable to the Western world.
That's a very good question. Why the Western world buys the Indian Hindutva narrative actually? If I paraphrase your question, am I right, Sumbul?
Yes,
So
yes. Why and
basically,
how?
if you see, yeah, basically, if you see, Hindutva was developing side by side with Indian independence. It was developing side by side with what was happening in Germany at that time. It was developing with the Congress. So if we see, apparently, it seems that Congress and Hindutva are two separate things. But from the very start, of Hindutva foundation, basically they were trying. They realized that Indian population will not buy their narrative directly. So they proliferated, they penetrated in other organizations. They penetrated inside Congress, Patel. They worship Patel actually. RSS people are worshipping Patel, who was the second most important Congress leader. So they penetrated in Gandhian institutions, and many of the Sangh Parivar organizations was initially started with the Gandhian philosophy, and Vishwa, this Hindutva Sangh Parivar organizations, which is I will remind you again that this is the collection of organizations who are following the Hindutva ideology. These organizations basically emerged from the Gandhian philosophy, and they actually worked in the disguise of Congress. Many of the people who are working inside, if you see Bollywood, one of the manifestation of Hindutva, through which basically Hindutva it is a soft power. Bollywood is a soft power. It's just an example of how they worked actually. If you see the movies of 40s, 50s, and 60s, you will realize that the language is not different from Urdu. If you see the language of some organizations, of for example, I will give you. I believe it will be interesting for you. There is a very famous Indian film called Mother India, and there is a song in Mother India that is called "Na main Bhagwan hu, na main shaitan hu, duniya jo chahe samjhe, main to insaan hu." So this is a verse, and if you realize there are three words: shaitan, insan, and dunya. These three words belong to Arabic, Quranic Arabic. These are Quranic terms. So Bollywood was using Hindustani. They used to call that our films are Hindustani, and Hindustani was being split. After partition, we used to call it Urdu, and they used to call it Hindi. But Bollywood actually Sanskritized. They added Sanskrit words in Hindi, in this Hindustani. So now if you see the movies in 70s, 80s, and increasingly if you see the movies and the curriculums too, the Indian curriculum too pushed this changing of the language actually. What Arundhati Roy says, that this is a partition of the language actually, the Hindustani language, that we are calling it Urdu and they are calling it Hindi, and Hindi is more and more influenced by Sanskrit, and we are more and more influenced by Persian and Arabic. So basically, this is Bollywood was one tool, and if you realize that in a secular country like India, Bollywood became more and more, they are pushing the Hindu narrative. If you realize, they have the puja everywhere. They have, if they are showing marriages in 99% of the movies, you will see the Hindu rituals and Hindu traditions inside the movies. So basically, and then there are anti-Pakistan narrative, anti-Muslim narrative, anti-Kashmiri narrative is very clear. If you can read between the pages, you can, every Pakistani, I believe that every Pakistani can see clearly that how their narrative is very much, and although we all watch, but we can see that the Indian movies, most of them, I'm not saying that all of them, there are some movies that we can count on fingers that they are not anti-Pakistan, they are not anti-Kashmiri, they are not anti-Muslim, but most of their political, the movies who are based on the political agenda, and many of them, for example, Bajrangi Bhaijan. Bajrang Dal is a militant wing of Hindutva, and it's a very dangerous organization. But in Bajrangi Bhaijan, Salman Khan
Sort of a
played the role of
paramilitary
Bajrangi
force, right?
Bhaijan. Sorry?
Sort of a paramilitary force, you can say.
It's
Militia.
sort of a paramilitary force, and paramilitary force, they just show it in Bajrangi Bhaijan. Shah Rukh Khan is a very innocent man, and he is a philanthropist who basically
Mhm.
suffered a lot to carry a Pakistani child to Pakistan. He suffered a lot. So the narrative, if we see the plot of that film, that actually the hidden plot, the hidden agenda of that film is to say that Bajrang Dal, the followers of Bajrang Dal, are very peaceful persons. They are human loving persons. They are peace loving people like Salman Khan, the hero that played. So the hidden agenda of that film was not about the Pakistani girl, Kashmiri girl who was lost in India. It was about Bajrang Dal, that Shah Rukh Khan was actually pushing this narrative that Bajrang Dal is a very peace loving organization. He was a Bhagat of Bajrang Dal. He mentioned that many times in the film, that I am a Bhagat of Bajrang Dal and I can't lie. I can't lie. Speaking the truth is my this and this. So this was the narrative in that. And then, if you remember, there was a film, and there are many Indian films who basically show these shakas, these where they actually give a physical training to their, and these paramilitary forces who are actually based on the NGOs, these Hindutva organizations, these are now in millions. They have the force of millions of people. That's why we are saying that genocide is very close. That's why the George Stanton in Washington Watch, I mean Washington-based Genocide Watch, he's warning for Indian Muslims genocide, because these people, these paramilitary forces are numbered in millions. We can see they have it, and then they are using the digital technology. In 2014 election, in 2019 elections, they used the WhatsApp. WhatsApp has become a tool for them. They are using it for genocide. And during the mob lynchings also, they use the network of WhatsApp. They are using the WhatsApp for fake news, dissemination of the fake news, dissemination of propaganda. So what your question was, why the West, or what actually, why their propaganda worked actually, you are saying. Their propaganda worked because they are able to persuade the world that we are very peaceful people. We are based on the Gandhian philosophy. The Modi and Gandhi. If you ask an ordinary RSS worker, he will bash Gandhi. But Modi always take head of the states. He always take them to Gandhi ashram in Sabarmati. That is in Gujarat. So Gandhi always take the head of the states to Sabarmati, the Gandhi ashram. Although, sorry, Modi. Although RSS people,
They hate Gandhi.
RSS
Yes.
people,
They hate Gandhi.
they hate Gandhi, and they worship Natham Godse, who killed Gandhi.
Yes, yes.
You will find
They're building
in RSS,
statues of Godse, the assassinator of
exactly, there
Gandhi.
are statues of Godse, and they actually worship Godse, who killed Gandhi, who assassinated Gandhi. So these are the terrorists. Actually, this is RSS is a terrorist organization, and there are strong evidence. Indian government has strong evidence that actually Natham Godse was actually was a follower of Govalkar. He was the follower of Savarkar, very close companion of Savarkar, and he killed Gandhi actually. And they are now the rulers in India. They are basically, so the world is buying this narrative of liberal democracy. The world is buying this narrative of peaceful nation based on Gandhi's philosophy. The world is buying the narrative pushed by Bollywood. If you see, then there is penetration of Harvard in Western universities. They have the penetration. If you see what is happening in Kashmir, there are some Western outlets who are publishing. They can't deny what is happening. The journalists are being detained. There are arbitrary detentions. There are extrajudicial killings. There are killings inside the custody. There are politicians being killed. They deny the dead bodies in Kashmir. So Western outlets are publishing about that. If you monitor the Western media, but you will see the counter narrative produced by these academics, these journalists who are working for Hindutva. So they are speaking at Harvard, they are speaking at Columbia, they are speaking at State Department's of audience. So basically, so their diplomacy, their academia, their media, their propaganda. If you see the propaganda wing, the Disinfo Lab revealed, actually, the EU Disinfo Lab revealed that there is too much. There are hundreds of organizations, even in Canada, there are 700 media outlets that the EU Disinfo Lab revealed that they are anti-Pakistan and they are being run by the Indian government or Indian intelligence, actually, and they are producing fake news about Pakistan, and they are very much similar to the Canadian, as you know, that even they faked this EU Disinfo Lab. There is a CJ Verdeman. I was reading the article last night from CJ Verdeman that they actually fabricated EU Disinfo Lab with the name Disinfo Lab. They are, I mean, when they are fabricating some they are mimicking some organization or some media outlet, they try to give it a name similar to very authentic. So EU Disinfo Lab has to actually give a disclaimer that we do not belong to Disinfo Lab. Disinfo Lab do not belong to us. So that's the thing. The propaganda is there, their media efforts, then their diplomacy. Their diplomacy very effective, and their diplomacy is very effective since the Congress days. If you read their diplomacy, and I'm really impressed by Indira Gandhi's efforts. I'm sorry for that. I don't want to offend anyone. But that if you study the diplomatic efforts of Indira Gandhi during 1971 crisis, during the 1971 East Pakistan conflict, whatever we should say. So basically, they were superb. So the Indians, apart from these Hindutva people, I'm not saying both Hindutva and Congress people, both these people, they are academically, they are very smart. Advocacy from their diplomacy is very smart, because academic and research engine is something that we have neglected. We, the Muslim world, we have neglected, and the India and China as compared to us. If you see that China, India, and Pakistan, they started their journey at the same time. China was the People's Republic Army. Sorry, I'm distracting from this. But what I will say, their successful diplomacy, their successful advocacy, their lobbying efforts, their media penetration in the media, their propaganda, their fake news, their use of digital technology. So, and their portrayal of India as something that, if you hear some of the, and I'm sure that you have heard some of the speeches given by their academic wing. I will call it. They have the academic wing, regardless of the fact that they are working with the name Vishwa Hindu Parishad or RSS or BJP or like, but there are people who support Indian government of Modi, genocidal regime of Modi, at Harvard, at Columbia, at the United States State Department, during the Congress hearings. So basically, these are all the things. I'm sorry if I missed something from that. And I hope I answered your question.
To summarize and to just have a gist, yes. Thank you. That was very informative and eye-opening, actually. But I would like to just add, or just give it a flavor that, India being a democracy, a very smooth democracy with a very powerful civil society, and having a good place in the world, it actually helped the Hindutva to have a place too, because India had a soft image, had a soft power around the world already before the BJP came to power. So basically, the Hindutva also very intelligently used the soft power tools and the cultural tools, I would say, the basic social cultural tools and fake news to disseminate their ideology. Coming to the next point, actually, thinking of how things become so acceptable on a global level for Hindutva, I would like to ask, did Islamophobic wave that came after 9/11 help Hindutva? Because it had the ideology before, we know it from 1923 it started. So, but actually, do you think that the wave of Islamophobia that started from 9/11 helped these people?
Islamophobic wave, definitely. Indian government was always anti-Pakistan. Even the Congress government, we know that, and there were sectarian, what they called riots are actually massacres, were actually massacres. 1993 Bombay, 2002 Gujarat, and there were many massacres. I can't even tell you in such limited time if I have the list. So there were periodically there were Muslim massacres inside India, and Indian government Congress, although they have a face of a secular liberal party, they also give impunity to those perpetrators of the massacres. We know that. Okay, the world knows that actually. If you see the academic researchers who have worked on Indian society, they actually acknowledge that very clearly. They acknowledge that Indian society and who were behind these massacres. These were Bal Thackeray, these RSS, the party of the Modi, the BJP. But definitely when 9/11 happened, it was a very good opportunity for them to villainize Muslims more and more. So I'm mentioning Bollywood again and again, but there are many Bollywood movies who basically portrayed Kashmiris and Pakistanis and Muslims as terrorists. I can name some of them, Sumbul, because I'm a student. At Harvard, I was a student of film studies, and that's why I'm able to critically evaluate what is the agenda behind the film, what universal phenomena it is dealing actually. So many of the Indian films are portraying Muslims as terrorists. Indian government's narrative, if you see, Indian government's narrative is based on this, that okay, Pakistanis are always creating terror, although they know that Kashmiri population do not want to live with them, although they know that Kashmir is a recognized disputed territory according to international law, according to the treaties the India has signed. They always blame Pakistan. I'm not saying that Pakistan is not doing anything, but if if a population is, according to international law, according to Geneva Convention, if a population is basically struggling for the right of self-determination, they have the right to take the help from their neighbors. They have the right to fight with the neighbors. They can take the help. They can take military support. They can take moral support. They can take financial support from others. During what we see in South Africa, the apartheid regime of South Africa, we have seen that they have taken, the whole world helped them. There was a point before their emancipation that the whole world helped them. So why not Kashmiris? But you see, the world is talking about Palestine. The world is talking about Bosnia. The world is talking about Rohingya. The world is talking too much about Uyghurs, but they are not talking about Kashmir, if you see. Although there are more than 18 United Nations Security Council resolutions. I'm sorry, I'm distracted. You asked the question. What was your question? I'm extremely sorry. I missed that. It was
well, you actually kind of replied about it. Yes, it was about how Islamophobic wave actually helped.
The Indian government used this.
Right.
Indian government used this rhetoric. Definitely, it was something that was that they had to exploit. Why we are thinking, and Islamophobia is not something. What I say about Islamophobia. Islamophobia is not a new phenomenon. It is as old as Islam itself, the history of Islam itself. When the Prophet, peace be upon him, when he gave the message of God, there were Quraysh, there were people who were afraid that if Islam came, their traditions will be lost, their ancestors' traditions will be lost, their business will be lost, their trade will be lost, their social structure, their political structure will be lost. So Islamophobia is not something new, but the kind of Islamophobia we are witnessing here, it's a global movement, if you see. India is using it, China is using it, Burma is using it, anti-immigrant European societies are using it. Trump was using it. White supremacists in the Western world are using this rhetoric. So 9/11 actually give them catapulted the Islamophobia, especially in the Western world. And definitely Indian government and Indian media and Indian diplomatic efforts use this rhetoric. And they know how to talk to the world. Indians and Hindus,
the rhetoric of terrorism was widely used by governments to track down separatist movements and resent. So apart from the geopolitical conflicts of India and Pakistan, because we are more concerned about minority rights everywhere. So what do you think, including all of this, what do you think we can do at both civil society level, or what would be your recommendations to the governments of the world about, because we are right now very worried about prospective genocide that's going to be happen, and not only the genocide but daily news of lynchings and killings of Muslims, so and also threats to Christians as well, and uh, Dalits being
Dalits, Christian. That's a very good
persecuted
question,
by.
and I will conclude on this question. This will be the last. I believe that Sumbul, 1 hour and 11 minutes until now. So basically, that's a very good question. What we should do, basically, before I mean, to persuade the governments around the world, to persuade United Nations to take some action, we have to mobilize the masses. We have to educate the masses, and we have to continue our government relations. We have to continue our advocacy with efforts with these powerful institutions like United Nations, Amnesty International. We have to make coalition with other human rights group. We have to make coalitions with the persecuted minorities. We have to be connected to the impacted communities. We have to consistently hammer these governments, Canadian government, United States government, United Kingdom government, Australian government, New Zealand. In short, before these governments become serious to take any action, we have to mobilize the masses. We need the masses through petitions, through op-eds, through media, through film, through storytelling. We need to do a lot in, and all this. If I use an umbrella term for all these efforts, that is advocacy. That is something that Justice for All is doing in North America, and there are many other organizations around the world. And I believe that if we need survival, if we Muslims really, if the persecuted minorities around the world, they really think that they need to survive in the world, they need to realize the importance, significance of advocacy, and they need to join the advocacy networks. They need to contribute their time, their energy, their financial financial resources for advocacy. Otherwise, we are not going anywhere. Uh, we should. Someone asked me that what we can do in 2017. There was someone was recording a program on Rohingya, and they invited me, and they asked me what should we do, and I said that we will have to initiate. I mean, we will have to focus our resources towards research, towards academia, towards advocacy. And I saw that he was very disappointed. He wanted something, oh, what we call uh, uh,
More dramatic.
no, no, no. He wanted some answer like what we call rang aaye chokha, the hing lage na phitkari, and rang aaye chokha. We don't want to do anything actually. There is something on our part too. We are also responsible for these persecutions of the minorities. We are also responsible for our backwardness, Sumbul. Until and unless we realize the importance of academic research, until and unless we realize the importance of advocacy, until and unless we realize the importance of diplomacy, we are not going anywhere. We are just spectators. We are just a market of 1.6 or 1.8 billion. Pew Research is trying to show the world that, oh, Muslims are dominating the world. RSS is pushing this narrative that Muslims are going to be the largest religious group in India. White supremacists are pushing this narrative that, okay, these immigrants are going to bring Sharia laws and all these things. But we are also responsible for our persecution. We have, if we want to survive, we have to take action. And the action we have to take, we have to mobilize the masses. We have to create government relations. We have to hammer out the international global institutions. We have to remind them the laws they made actually. They have made our work very easy. If you see, when Holocaust happened, there was no term like genocide. Now we know there is a term, there is a whole corpus in 1948 Genocide Convention. The Raphael Lincoln coined this term, and we have the whole structure of this law. We can compare, we can show the world that genocide is happening actually. They actually created this human rights, and many times we say that, okay, our Islamic laws are better than this and this. Usually there is a narrative like this. You have heard that. And I think that these international institutions like United Nations, although definitely I will acknowledge that they are not doing anything. They are moving very glacially, but they actually created the corpus of the law. They actually made consensus among all the countries. Of 90%, 95% of the countries have signed these treaties, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which actually guarantees freedoms, which actually guarantees give protections to the minorities. And then we need to learn the constitutions. We need to learn the liberal constitutions of United States. We need to learn, actually Indian Muslims are fighting very hard, and they are fighting on the basis of Indian constitution, because Indian constitution protects the minorities. The secular constitution produced by Nehru and Ambedkar, it actually protects the minorities, and they are fighting. The girl, that Allah Akbar girl who actually
Yes,
in Karnataka, she actually today said that I believe on Indian constitution. Indian constitution protects my rights. So basically, we need to learn these things, and we are usually our reaction is when we talk about, when I talk about advocacy or diplomacy, they say, oh, nothing is going to happen because these are the institutions, United States and United Nations, these actually created this chaos. Why would they clear that chaos, or what we call in Urdu raita? So basically, when Prophet Muhammad actually basically he was rewarded with Nabuwa, he actually sent letters to the Roman Empire, the rulers of the Roman Empire and the rulers of the Persian Empire. So this was advocacy actually. What was that? Advocacy on behalf of the Islamic system or the religion, but it was advocacy. He did not think that, okay, this whole mess is created by these kuffars or these people, so we are not going to communicate with them. We have to communicate with them. And we don't know, there are many Hindus, there are many Jews. There are Hindus against Hindutva, there are Jews against Zionists, there are Muslims against ISIS. So we will find our allies from these people. We are going to, and most of the world population, if we are able to persuade them, if we are able to talk with them through logical arguments, I believe that they will understand. They understand the language of, and we need to learn their language too. In what language? Diplomacy is such a thing that you need to learn how Sumbul will understand me. What cultural symbols Sumbul understand? If I'm talking about Bollywood, will Sumbul or the audience will be able to relate to it or not? And I know people relate when I talk about Bollywood. So this is something I will say. So Justice for All is doing for all these things. I mean, we are working in terms of government relations. We are working in terms of educating the masses. We are working in terms of giving rebuttals to these genocidal calls. We are reminding the West and the global institutions the laws they created regarding human rights, regarding genocide, regarding this disputed territories. So that's I think that we have to come to this solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Tazeen, for your time. I would like to conclude with a note that, of course, these humanitarian issues, human rights issues, are beyond any affiliation with, race, culture, religion, because every human being understands that he has to have, the right to live, the freedom to practice their religious beliefs without harming others. So these are universal values, I must say. And many Indian civil society parts are also, trying to fight against this, whether they're Hindus or Dalits or Muslims, or are also working against this trend. So we hope that we all join hands and we all benefit each other from our struggles. And I hope that we are able to do something for the plight of these minorities that are in danger. Thank you, Tazeen Hasan, for your valuable time and this informative talk.
Thank you very much, Sumbul, for inviting me. And it was really a fruitful discussion. I hope that I did not distract it too much from the questions. and hope I answered the questions. Thank you very much. It was really a very insightful discussion and very good questions you asked. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Goodbye. See you
Thank you for
again soon.
SARIM, South Asian Research Institute. Thank you, FICA. Thank you very much.